I was standing in the middle of a glittering ballroom, the chandeliers humming with light, when my parents handed my sister a velvet box. The lid lifted. Applause erupted. Inside, documents tied with a satin ribbon, their value whispered through every gasping mouth at the table. $1.2 million in company shares, for her engagement, not her wedding. Not even her marriage. Her engagement. I swallowed against the sour taste crawling up my throat, because at my wedding, just 2 years before, I'd been handed a coffee maker. Wrapped in silver paper. Still with the discount sticker stuck underneath, and I remember my mother's voice cutting through my silence that day. It's practical. You'll use it more than jewelry. That was my wedding gift. My name is Rachel. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own family? Because in that ballroom, I didn't just feel invisible. I felt erased. I caught my husband's glance across the table, his jaw tight. He'd seen it too. He always did. But he never said anything, not because he didn't care, but because he knew my silence wasn't weakness. It was gathering into something sharp. The night air outside was colder than I expected when I slipped out. I pressed my palms against the stone railing, the sounds of laughter and champagne clinking bleeding through the doors behind me. I remembered every babysitting night I'd spent raising my sister when mom was too tired. Every shift I'd picked up through college to send money home. Every time I'd been told, "You're strong. You don't need help. Your sister does." And now, she was their golden child. Their chosen heir. I looked down at my phone, lit against the dark, and for the first time in my life, I opened the Notes app and began to write, not a speech. Not a letter. A ledger, every sacrifice, every dollar, every forgotten night of labor, line after line, my fingers trembling but unrelenting. The truth was no longer staying buried, and when it was finished, my mother would finally have to look me in the eye and see what she had done. The ballroom doors swung shut behind me, muffling the music until it sounded like it belonged to another world. Inside, my sister was spinning beneath chandeliers, her diamond ring catching light like it owned the room. Outside, my hands were shaking as I scrolled back through the ledger. I'd begun, every line was a ghost clawing its way out. 2008, skipped prom because mom needed someone to stay with Emily while she worked night shift. 2011, my scholarship money went to pay for Emily's SAT prep course. 2013, loaned dad $7,200 from my college fund when he was short for the mortgage. Each entry was a bruise no one else could see. I should have felt relief, but my throat ached with rage. Writing didn't just remind me, it resurrected it all. A burst of laughter slipped out from the ballroom. I turned my head and saw them through the glass doors, mom with her proud smile, dad clapping my sister's fiancé on the back like he'd just purchased a prize horse, and me? I wasn't even in the reflection. I didn't notice my sister until she found me. She stepped onto the terrace, perfume heavy, a glass of champagne balanced in her hand. "Rach, are you okay?" Her voice was sweet, soft, the kind of voice she only used when she felt the eyes of others nearby. I turned, forcing my mouth into something between a smile and a grimace. "Just getting air." She tilted her head. "You know mom and dad didn't mean it like that." My jaw clenched. "Didn't mean what?" Her shoulders lifted in a delicate shrug, the diamond flashing again. "The shares. They just want to make sure I'm secure." Secure, the word landed like a slap. I wanted to laugh, but it came out sharper than I intended. "Emily, do you remember who paid your rent the year you dropped out of college?" Her eyes flickered, then darted away. "That's not fair." "No," I said, stepping closer, my voice low. "What's not fair is that I've carried this family for years. And tonight, you get rewarded like you built it." Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked almost guilty. But not guilty enough to hand those shares back. "Don't ruin tonight," she whispered, almost pleading, and then she slipped back inside. I stood there, every vein in my body singing with a bitter electricity. I thought about storming in, flipping that table of champagne and roses, demanding my parents explain themselves in front of everyone, but rage wasn't my weapon, memory was. I went home that night, ignoring the calls from relatives asking why I'd left early. My husband trailed behind me quietly, giving me the kind of silence that wasn't empty, but protective. In our kitchen, I placed the coffee maker, my wedding gift, on the counter. For years I'd kept it tucked away in the pantry, too humiliated to look at it, but tonight, I stared at it until my reflection warped in its steel. "Tomorrow," I whispered to myself, "they'll hear me." I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, and finished the ledger. Every forgotten sacrifice. Every penny lost. Every smile I gave them when my pockets were empty. It wasn't just a list anymore. It was evidence, and I wasn't going to bury it in my Notes app. I was going to deliver it in a way they'd never forget, the kind of way that would leave my mother's perfect voice trembling. I didn't sleep that night. The list kept glowing against the dark, each line like a vein of fire under my skin. My husband, Daniel, had drifted off beside me, but even his steady breathing couldn't drown out the rhythm in my head. They forgot. By dawn, my decision was already carved into stone. I wasn't going to beg for recognition. I wasn't going to ask for fairness. I was going to force them to look at the truth. When the morning sun cut through our blinds, I sat at the table again, staring at the coffee maker. I brewed a pot, the bitter steam rising like smoke. My hands hovered over my laptop, but I didn't open Word. I opened PowerPoint, slide by slide. I began, not a speech, not a letter. A presentation. Evidence needed witnesses. Evidence needed clarity. Evidence needed weight. I titled the first slide, The Cost of Being Invisible. My chest tightened as I typed. Each slide held a year. Each year, a sacrifice. I pulled numbers from memory, bank records, old emails. Babysitting. Rent money. Loans. Scholarships drained, slide after slide. Page after page, and on the final slide, I placed two images side by side. On the left, a photo from my wedding, me holding the coffee maker, smiling like it didn't sting. On the right, last night's photo of Emily with her $1.2 million shares, her hand lifted high for the camera. Beneath it, I typed only one line, tell me again who needed security. By the time I finished, my eyes burned, but my spine felt taller. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was justice sharpening its blade. That evening, I called my parents. My voice was steady when Mom picked up. Dinner tomorrow. Our house. 7 o'clock. Bring Emily. Bring Dad. She hesitated. Is something wrong? I let silence answer her. When I hung up, Daniel looked at me from across the room. He didn't ask what I was doing. He just said quietly, "Do you need me there?" I shook my head. Not yet. The next day crawled like it was afraid of me. I cleaned the kitchen twice. I reheated food I didn't care about. I rehearsed my words in the mirror until I didn't recognize the woman staring back. By 7, their cars lined the street. The sound of heels on our front steps was louder than I remembered. I opened the door to see them, Mom in pearls, Dad adjusting his tie, Emily clutching her fiancé's hand like she was already royalty. Rachel, Mom said brightly, her tone stretched thin. This is a surprise. I stepped aside, my pulse loud. Come in. They filled the living room like they owned it. I didn't offer drinks. I didn't make small talk. Instead, I walked to the TV, plugged in my laptop, and clicked share screen. The first slide bloomed across the room. The cost of being invisible. Mom's smile faltered. Dad's brows pinched. Emily shifted uncomfortably. I turned to face them. My voice didn't shake. I've carried this family my entire life. And you've all forgotten. So tonight, you're going to remember. And with one click, the ledger began. Each slide was a blade. Each number, a scar. I watched their faces pale with every sacrifice resurrected, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't the invisible one in the room. I was the storm. The room went still except for the soft click of my mouse. Slide after slide, my ledger unfolded across the TV screen. 2008, I read aloud, my voice steady. Babysat Emily every weekend so Mom could pick up double shifts. No pay. No thanks. The next click, 2011, $3,400 from my scholarship fund went to Emily's SAT prep. I settled for community college courses that year. I didn't look at them. Not yet. 2013, loaned Dad $7,200 when the mortgage almost slipped into default. Paid back? Never. Mom finally broke. Rachel, don't. I cut her off, sharper than I meant. But sharper was good. You had your chance to speak for me. You never did. The next slide hit. My wedding photo, me in a lace dress. Holding the coffee maker like it was precious china. Silence swallowed the room. Then came Emily's engagement photo, her hand lifted in champagne light. $1.2 million in shares like a crown. I turned, their faces told me everything. Mom's lips pressed into a white line. Dad's shoulders slumped with an exhaustion I didn't recognize. Emily's fiancé cleared his throat, but Emily's hand crushed his wrist until he stayed silent. Do you see it? I asked. My voice wasn't a whisper, but it carried like one. Do you see what you made me into? The backbone of this family. The safety net. The ghost you never thanked. Mom shook her head, her pearls trembling against her neck. Rachel, you're twisting things. I stepped closer, my pulse hammering. Am I? Or did you twist me? Tell me again why Emily needs security. Tell me why her mistakes deserve million-dollar cushions while my sacrifices earn appliances on clearance. Emily's eyes filled, but she didn't speak. Dad rubbed his temples. We thought, you've always been stronger. Independent. You didn't need? My laugh cracked, raw. I needed a mother who saw me. I needed parents who didn't drain me dry because I could survive it. I needed to matter. The words spilled hot, my chest rising and falling like I'd been holding my breath for 20 years. Mom finally snapped, her voice sharp as glass. Enough. You think dragging us here, humiliating us, makes you righteous? You're bitter, Rachel. Always have been. Her words stung, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I lifted the remote, clicked to the final slide, the two photos stared back at them, the coffee maker, the shares. Beneath it, my line, tell me again who needed security. The silence was heavy, suffocating, then I said it. The words I'd buried for too long, you made me invisible. But tonight, I am unforgettable. I closed the laptop. The TV went black. No one moved, not my parents. Not my sister. Not me. The only sound was the faint hum of the coffee maker in the kitchen, brewing something bitter and strong, and for the first time, I felt it rising in me. Justice wasn't just coming. It was already here. No one spoke at first. The black screen reflected us like a cracked mirror, me standing, my family sitting. Their silence was a courtroom, and I was the only one unafraid of the verdict. Finally, Dad exhaled, the sound brittle. Rachel, we didn't realize. I laughed once, a hollow sound. Didn't realize? That ledger wasn't a revelation, it was my life. And you walked through it with your eyes closed. Emily shifted in her chair, her fiancé's hand resting on her knee like she might break without it. Ratch. I never asked for, you didn't have to, I snapped. My gaze cut to her. You never refused either. You took every dollar, every sacrifice, and you smiled. And I let you, because I thought one day someone would remember. Her eyes brimmed, but I wasn't done. I turned to Mom. She was still, her expression carved from stone, but her fingers trembled against her pearls. You know what hurts most? My voice softened, but it didn't waver. It's not the money. It's not the shares. It's knowing you looked at me, your firstborn, and decided I could be disposable. That cracked something in her. She rose suddenly, her voice shrill. Disposable? Rachel, we gave you everything. A roof, food, clothes, basic survival, I cut in coldly. Don't confuse neglect with generosity. Her mouth snapped shut. I stepped closer, my words low, deliberate. At my wedding? You stood in front of 100 people and handed me a coffee maker. Do you know what that felt like? To stand there, humiliated, pretending it was enough? And then last night, you crown Emily with $1.2 million in shares like she's the empire, when I was the foundation you built it on. Dad's hand rubbed over his mouth. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. We thought we were being fair in our own way. Fair, I echoed, the word bitter. Do you want to know what fair looks like? I pulled a folder from beneath the coffee table. Their eyes followed it like it might explode. Inside, I had printed versions of the slides, every sacrifice, every photo, every number. I spread them across the table like evidence in a trial. Mom's hands twitched, reaching for them, then pulling back like the paper burned. You're going to take these home, I said calmly. You're going to look at them every night. And you're going to remember that your golden child stands on my bones. Emily finally broke, her voice trembling. Rachel, please, I didn't ask for this fight. No, I whispered, my eyes locking with hers. But you benefited from it. And that makes you guilty too. Her fiancé cleared his throat, trying to salvage dignity. Maybe this isn't the time. I turned my gaze on him like a blade. Stay out of this. You don't know the cost of this family's love. You've only tasted the feast. You weren't there for the famine. The room froze again. My voice softened, but the softness cut deeper than any shout. Every time I sacrificed, I told myself, it's family. They'll remember. They'll honor it someday. Last night, you proved me wrong. So from now on, I'll honor myself. I picked up the coffee maker from the counter and set it gently on the table between us. This is what you thought I was worth. Keep it. Because I've finally learned the truth, your gifts don't measure me. My sacrifices measure you. Mom's breath hitched. Emily stared at the machine like it was radioactive. Dad looked down, unable to meet my eyes. The silence was heavier now. Not courtroom silence. Cemetery silence. Something had died between us, and in the hollow that death left behind, I felt something new blooming. Power. I was no longer begging to be seen. I was demanding to be remembered. The next morning, I expected quiet, maybe guilt-filled silence. Maybe angry calls, but what I got instead was worse. Nothing. No messages. No apologies. Just erasure, like my family had decided, once again, to pretend I didn't exist. Daniel watched me pace the kitchen, the empty spot on the table where the coffee maker had sat still glaring at me. They'll bury this, I muttered. They'll twist it until I'm the villain. Until I'm the bitter daughter who ruined her sister's happiness. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't comfort. He just asked quietly, so what do you want to do about it? My answer was already burning in me. I opened my laptop. Not to notes. Not to PowerPoint. To Facebook, and then, email.by the afternoon, every relative, every family friend, every church acquaintance had an inbox flooded with the same file. the cost of being invisible. I didn't add commentary. Didn't add bitterness, just the ledger. The photos. The coffee maker. The shares, evidence didn't need a narrator. It needed light. The fallout began within hours. My phone buzzed like it was alive, texts from cousins. Rachel? I had no idea. Aunts, your mother never mentioned any of this. Uncles, I always wondered how Emily had so much support. And then, finally, a message from Emily herself. What the hell did you do? I ignored it. The truth was no longer hers to hide. By evening, my mother called. I didn't answer the first 3 times, but on the 4th, I pressed my thumb to the screen. Her voice was raw, stripped of its usual polish. Rachel. How could you? How could you humiliate us like this? I laughed, bitter. Funny, you. Never asked how I could sacrifice for you in silence. You only care when silence breaks. You've destroyed our reputation, she hissed. No, I said coldly. I've revealed it. There was a pause, then her voice cracked, just slightly. What do you want from us? That was the moment. The one I'd been waiting for all my life. I closed my eyes, inhaled the taste of her fear, her cornered pride, and then I said it. I want acknowledgement. Public acknowledgement. You will gather the family, and you will say out loud what I've done. What you've taken. And you will tell the truth about who I am. She went silent. So I twisted the knife, or I'll send the ledger to every partner Dad's company has ever worked with. Every board member. Every client. Let's see how they feel about a man who steals from his own daughter. Her breath caught. Rachel, please, but I ended the call. I wasn't her daughter in that moment. I was her reckoning. When I opened my laptop again, I added one final line to the last slide of my ledger. Silence is no longer an option. Remember me, or I'll make sure the world does. And I hit send again, this time, not just to family, this time, to everyone on my mother's contact list. I had cracked the foundation. Now, I was bringing down the house. By the next morning. The silence was gone. It was replaced with chaos. My inbox overflowed, some with pity, some with outrage, most with disbelief. Old family friends wrote things like, "We always knew your parents favored Emily, but this? This is shameful." But the messages that mattered most weren't from relatives, they were from Dad's business partners. Subject lines like, "Care to explain this, Tom? Is this how you treat your own blood? If this is how you manage family, how do you manage clients?" I smiled grimly at the screen. My father's empire wasn't built on concrete, it was built on perception. On the illusion of honor and integrity, and I had just shattered it. By noon, Dad called. His voice was stripped bare. "Rachel, we need to talk. Please. In person." "No," I said softly. "We'll talk when you're ready to acknowledge me. Until then, you can watch everything you built crumble." "Rachel," his voice cracked. I hung up. That evening, Emily showed up at my house. No pearls, no fiancé, no champagne glow. Just swollen eyes and a trembling hand clutching the strap of her bag. When I opened the door, she whispered, "You've ruined me." I stepped aside, letting her in. "No, Emily. I just exposed what you stood on." She sank onto my couch like she'd aged a decade overnight. "Do you think I wanted this? The shares, the praise, the golden child crown? I didn't ask for it. I didn't know how to stop it." I studied her carefully. For the first time, she looked less like my rival and more like the child I once babysat through the night, but pity was a luxury I couldn't afford. "You benefited," I said evenly. "You smiled through every gift, every sacrifice you knew I made. You may not have asked for the crown, but you wore it." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "So what happens now?" I leaned forward, my voice low, deliberate. "Now? You tell them the truth. At the family gathering Mom's been forced to plan. You tell every cousin, every uncle, every aunt exactly who I am and what I've done. You admit that the golden child was carried on my back." Her breath hitched. "And if I don't?" I didn't blink. "Then those shares you're clutching so tightly will be worth nothing, because I'll make sure Dad's company collapses before you can cash a single dollar." Her eyes widened. She saw it then, the steel in me. The sister she thought she could eclipse now holding the sun. She nodded slowly, the crown slipping from her head. By the time she left, the house was quiet again, but inside me, the silence was different. Not hollow. Not heavy. It was power. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be remembered. I was commanding it, and the stage was set for the reckoning. The gathering was held at my parents' house, their fortress of pride. The place where every holiday I had stood in the kitchen, apron tight, serving food while Emily basked in compliments. This time, I didn't enter quietly. The living room buzzed with relatives, cousins, uncles, aunts, faces tight with curiosity. Some with pity, others with judgment. They'd all seen the ledger. My mother stood near the fireplace, her pearls absent, her face pale. My father sat stiff in his chair, as though holding himself upright was the only dignity he had left. Emily hovered near the center, her fiancé trailing behind like a shadow. She looked fragile, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who knew her crown had cracked. When I walked in, the room hushed. I didn't need to clear my throat. I didn't need to demand silence. I already had it. Mom's voice trembled as she tried to begin. Rachel, we've called everyone here to. No, I said, cutting her off. Emily will speak first. Gasps fluttered. Emily swallowed hard, glancing at me before facing the family. Her voice shook at first. For years, I've been celebrated as the responsible one, the successful one. But, the truth is, I was carried by Rachel. Her words dropped heavy into the silence. She gave up prom, scholarships, her own future, so I could have mine. Every step of my life, she sacrificed for me. And our parents rewarded me while they forgot her. Whispers rippled across the room. Eyes turned, some sharp, some shameful, toward my parents. Dad's face was ashen. Mom's lips quivered, but for once, she said nothing. I stepped forward, my heart steady. All I ever wanted, I said softly, was to be acknowledged. To be seen. To matter as much as the daughter you placed on a pedestal. I turned to my parents, my voice sharp enough to slice. Last night, I forced you to look at the truth. Today, you'll say it. Out loud. The room froze. Mom's chest rose and fell quickly, like she was drowning. Finally, her voice cracked. Rachel, we failed you. We used you because you were strong, and we never repaid you. We forgot your sacrifices. We made you invisible. Her words weren't elegant. They weren't polished, but they were real, and they were mine. Dad's head dropped into his hands. Everything we built, it stands on you. And we never said thank you. I'm sorry, Rachel. I let the silence linger, let their words hang in the air like a verdict finally spoken. Then I reached into my bag, pulled out the folder of printed slides, and placed it on the coffee table in front of them. Keep it, I said. So you never forget again. The relatives sat in silence, the kind that tastes like shame. I turned, walking toward the door, the weight of decades lifting from my shoulders. Daniel was waiting outside, leaning against the car, his steady gaze meeting mine. As I slid into the passenger seat, I looked back once. Through the window, I saw my mother clutching the folder like it was a Bible, her lips trembling, her face drained. For the first time, I knew she'd remember every line. Justice wasn't loud, justice was a ledger, and mine was finally balanced. Asterisk.